it was really interesting for me because I think one of the biggest challenges in reporting about conflict or war or hostile environments is that people get locked into a certain narrative. And especially in what we're seeing now in the Middle East, it's sort of evil dictator versus heroic protesters, and everyone starts to see it through this very specific lens. And so for me it was really refreshing to be able to understand a little bit of the nuance in that story, and that it wasn't so simple, and that in fact, you know, there were a whole level of degrees of opinions about what was happening there, and that educated, smart people you know, saw some of the value in stability in the country, and that it wasn't just people with foreign agendas that wanted to keep Mubarak in power. And so, yeah, seeing both sides, I think for me was really interesting, but also fairly emotional because I was watching my family go through this very, very emotional roller coaster through these few weeks. Of wanting something so badly and pushing for it, and going out there and getting tear gassed and stomped on and rocks thrown and coming back exhausted and drained, and then doing it all over again the next day because they really believed in what they were fighting for. And then to see these other people who really couldn't relate to that experience at all. It was really a fascinating sort of dissection of society. I think having roots within the local culture is a double-edged sword. It can be very helpful, and I actually think, you know, journalism that is rooted in the place where it's happening is always much more thoughtful, much more insightful. And, you know, I think as much as possible journalism should be locally based or made by people who understand local culture. That being said, as someone with dual nationality, going into Egypt, for example, I did, I think, benefit a lot from being Egyptian. People, especially in the Arab world, have, I think, understandably, a lot of suspicion about the outside world. They've seen the West sort of, you know, they've seen Western leaders act in their own interests. They've seen Western media misunderstand them, or so they say. And I think they feel a certain comfort and a certain ability to speak openly when they're with fellow Arabs. And so that, I think, was really useful in terms of opening the door. You know, all I have to say is Zayak, and we start talking in Arabic, and all of a sudden the people are laughing and inviting you into their home and so on. That, I think, is a huge plus. Apart from the issues of access that we've talked about in terms of actually being able to get there, well, actually it goes even beyond that in terms of access. You know, this is the case for all journalism, where getting there is a big part of it. There's, I think, 90% of the job is just getting there, someone once told me. But I think it's even more so in hostile environments. Getting access to real information is often such a challenge. And I was reporting from northern Darfur. So I was I suppose you could call it a town, although it's really just a refugee camp called Tawila. And I was staying at a UN base. And I wanted to get to an area where fighting had recently happened. How do you do that? I don't have a 4x4. I was a freelancer at the time. I didn't have resources to, you know, hire a private security company to drive me through the desert. And what I ended up doing was paying some villager who wanted the money so badly that he was willing to risk it to take me into this very dangerous area. And you can imagine, like, us driving through the desert in this car. It actually got stuck in the sand at one point while the military helicopters were circling above, and we were the only vehicle in eyesight. And all this just to get to the place before you can even start doing the reporting. So I think access is a major issue, but there's a whole other level of problems in terms of getting people to talk to you, I think. I found, actually, this might surprise you, it's both ends of the coin. You have people who are too scared to talk, and finding people who are willing to give you their real opinion is sometimes a challenge, because they don't know if they can trust you, they don't know what side you're on, sometimes you don't know what side they're on. Figuring out who is a challenge. But also, in some of these longer term conflicts, both sides begin to understand the media, and they become more and more savvy, and they know that getting the world on their side is important, and they start to develop, in a conflict like Darfur that's gone on for 8 years now, they start to develop an understanding of what it is they need to say. And so I found myself talking to refugees who were, it seemed to me anyway, sort of repeating the lines that they felt they should say in order to get the world to see it from their perspective. And so getting genuine perspectives starts to become a problem. I mean, I had Darfurian rebels sending me Christmas cards, and they're Muslim. So you can see like the extent to which these conflicts become a bit of a media game, where each side is saying this is what's happening, this is what's happening, and you can't actually get to the ground to find out the truth of the matter. That for me is one of the biggest challenges.